I'm taking two completely different game genres and fusing them together to create a brand new FPS genre. The first genre I will be combining has blown up in the past couple of years and has accrued millions of players. This genre is played by some of the top streamers and has built a cult-like following. Many players praise the realism of these games and enjoy their slower paced combat. If you ever played Escape from Tarkov, Ready or Not, Rainbow Six Siege or Valorant, then you have played a tactical shooter. Now wait, some of you may be saying that Valorant cannot be a tactical shooter, as its gameplay is arcadey since its characters use abilities and it's nothing like the gritty slow-paced gameplay of Escape from Tarkov. While the playstyle of these two games may be completely different, I believe they are both tactical shooters. This becomes more apparent if we look at the tactical shooter genre as a spectrum between hardcore and arcade tactical shooters. If we place some games on this spectrum, we can see that the line where you would differentiate a tactical game from a regular FPS starts to get fuzzy. This uncertainty is why I think that the tactical genre can have games that contain some arcadey elements, but still be called a tactical shooter. So, where does the game I am creating fall on the spectrum? Recently, I picked up Ready or Not, and have been enjoying the realism that this hardcore shooter provides. However, for me, I found that the hardcore games can be a bit too slow paced for my liking, and the realistic mechanics can sometimes make the movement feel slow and clunky. In contrast, a game like Rainbow Six Siege still gives me that tactical feeling, but has nice, quick, snappy gunplay, which I really enjoy. This faster paced gameplay is something I plan on building into my game, which is why my game falls more on the arcadey side of tactical shooters. The second genre I will be combining is quite popular and commonly has many different items you can combine to experience different build paths. This genre is also commonly done in 2D. Why, you may ask? Well, this is primarily due to time. Since there are so many different items you need to create, it's simply easier to make them in 2D rather than 3D. For example, if you have a pixel art 2D game, you can make so many different types of weapons in just a few days. However, that same amount of items would take months to make in 3D. This isn't to say that this genre is exclusively 2D, there is now a few 3D games in this genre. The most noteworthy are Risk of Rain 2, Gunfire Reborn, and RoboQuest. You may have guessed it by now, but the second genre is the roguelike genre. This means that I will be combining these two genres together and making a brand new genre called the tactical roguelike genre. While making a game in this genre is exciting, it is also quite scary. There's currently less than 10 released games in this genre, so there's no guarantee of success. Instead, there's a high potential that actually end up ostracizing people from both genres, since the gameplay does not fit nicely into either of them. Even though it is unclear whether people will like this new genre, personally, I think it'd be a lot of fun, which is why I'm making a game in this genre. But let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm being delusional, or if you think there's a potential for games in this genre. So now you may have a few questions like, what would a tactical roguelike look like, and would it be fun to play? To answer these questions, let me tell you my experience playing tactical and roguelike games. When I am playing a tactical shooter, the tension you feel is unmatched. Whether this is the tension of breaching a door in Ready or Not, or just roaming a forest in Escape from Tarkov. The experience that your every move is the difference between life and death is not easily experienced in other game genres. Alongside this, the gameplay is usually very realistic. This results in you feeling tactical not only while shooting, but even when you are just walking around. However, for me, these games' greatest strengths are also their greatest weaknesses. In Escape from Tarkov, you can spend 10 to 20 minutes roaming around, looting, hearing enemies shooting, but never seeing them, only to step outside and get sniped, losing all your progress. While this may be fun for some people as the entire experience was tense, personally, to invest that much time to get 0 or just a few gunfights is not that fun. For contrast, if I picked up something like Call of Duty, I could have hundreds of gunfights in the same amount of time. This is why I want to create something where there's not much downtime between gunfights, but you are still able to approach those gunfights tactically. A great example of this is Rainbow Six Siege. All the gunfights are done in a matter of minutes, and each of them feel very tactical. So how does my experience in roguelites differ from tactical shooters? For starters, the gameplay for most of them are completely different, as it's more like Call of Duty having fast-paced, constant combat. For me, I really enjoy this aspect as the downtime between fighting is minimal. Alongside this, there's usually a wide variety of build paths which allow fighting the same types of enemies to feel like a brand new experience. However, where roguelikes fall short for me, specifically in 3D, is the fact that all the games use floaty, fast-paced controls. If you look at any of the top 3D roguelikes, the primary way to avoid enemies is to just jump around and maybe dash. While this can be enjoyable sometimes, it quickly gets repetitive. This disdain with floaty controls is why I'm trying to make my game feel like a tactical shooter, but still have fast-paced combat. The only game that I've found that somewhat matches this type of gameplay is Witchfire, as it has more tactical feeling movement, albeit with some abilities mixed in. So back to the two questions I proposed at the beginning: what would a tactical roguelike look like, and would it be fun to play? A tactical roguelike game to me would have tactical feeling gunplay and movement with minimal downtime between gunfights. This type of game would probably be fun if you enjoyed a more arcadey, fast-paced tactical shooter like Rainbow Six Siege, or if you enjoy any 3D roguelites and are wanting your movement to feel a bit more tactical. So, if you think you would enjoy this type of game, please wishlist my game Revenge Request now on Steam, the link is in the description. Now that this new game genre is defined and some of the positive and negative aspects that I want to focus on have been made, where do I start in creating this game? Well, we start with how anything starts, and that's by taking a step forward, and then another step, and then another until we're done. In our case, the first step is choosing a game engine, and for me, that choice was simple: Unity. I've made many projects with Unity before, and I have started to get a good understanding of how to make a game using C#. At least, that's what I would have said if Unity didn't decide to change their pricing structure right as I was starting this project. And to make matters worse, this also happened right after I spent a week trying to get Unity's preferred ad method of using Iron Source to work. These two things pushed me to give Unreal Engine a try, which I had been pushing off because of the steep learning curve. However, a Udemy course by GameDev TV and a few YouTube videos later, and I felt like I had a decent understanding of how to use Unreal Engine. This new understanding, as well as Unreal's ability to render realistic environments, made it the clear choice for which game engine to use in my game. Now that I decided which game engine I will be using, I immediately started building my game. Or at least that's what I wanted to do, but I knew there was something more important that I needed to do first, and that was creating a game design document, or GDD for short. I find that this is a step that many game developers seem to overlook, as they say it will take too much time and it's not important, especially if you're a solo. However, while making my GDD, I found it to be tremendously helpful in clarifying many aspects of my game, as well as it only took a day or two to complete. A few things that it taught me is about my game's genre, which if you don't know is one of the biggest indicators of potential sales for your game. It also helped me clarify my target's audience, the style of art for my game, and the experience I wanted my players to have. Lastly, it helped me define my timeline, game mechanics, and most importantly, my do not do list. What is a do not do list? Well, for me, it's aspects of my game that I could add, but should not no matter what. To illustrate the importance of this list, let's see how it would affect my game's timeline if I didn't have it. Currently, my timeline is mapped out, so I should be able to complete my game in a year. If, however, I did not have a do not do list, it is very likely that I would get feedback saying that I should add multiplayer to my game and it'd be so much fun to play with friends. And while this is true, it would be fun, it would also turn my 1-year game into a 2 to 3 year game. And this is with only adding one extra feature into my game. You can see how this can quickly compound and is the reason why so many developers end up spending 5 to 6 years working on a single game. For me, this is why it's so important to set a do not do list at the start of my game's development to dramatically scope down my game into something I can do in a reasonable amount of time. Alongside multiplayer, another time sink I added to my do not do list is art. Since I'm going for a more realistic style, creating high quality assets from scratch could easily add 2 years onto my project. Instead, I am planning to buy asset packs and adjust them as needed to make a cohesive style for my game. Alongside this, I plan on making my own art, but only for things that are necessary for my game's development that I can't easily find anywhere else. Now that my game design document is complete, I can finally start making the game. I started by making a prototype where the emphasis is on making the main mechanics of my game and making sure that they are fun to play. The first thing that I did was open up a new Unreal Engine project and began working on the weapon mechanics. There are 3 fundamental weapon mechanics in tactical shooters. They are shooting, reloading, and aiming down sights. I created a very basic shooting mechanic by raycasting from my gun, which will simulate a bullet being fired. The reload mechanic was quite simple to implement. It only required a basic reload animation, which would change my ammo integer back to its default value upon completing. Finally, the ADS mechanic was created in a similar fashion by playing an ADS animation to look down the sight of the player's weapon. After completing the basic weapon mechanics, I started working on the second most important part, which is the player movement. Since I wanted the player movement to be based off of a tactical shooter, the movement should really feel grounded in reality. A lot of tactical shooters either reduce the player's jump height or remove it completely, so I'll start by reducing the player's jump height and seeing how it feels while I play. The next step that I did was getting the player's movement to feel natural. I did this by reducing the player's movement speed when they're aiming down sights, as well as increased it when they are sprinting. I also added a tactical sprint, which allows the players to aim down sight and sprint at the same time, at a pace a bit faster than walking, but there's a cost of the weapon bouncing around a lot. The final player movement mechanic I added is something that all tactical shooters have, and that is leaning. For me, being able to lean around a corner and headshot an enemy is one of the most tactical feeling things, and is a must-have feature in my game. Now that the weapon and player mechanics are complete, the only thing I have left to do to complete my prototype is to add some enemies. While I could make them be smart by taking cover and shooting back at the player, for my initial prototype, I think it's enough just to have the enemy run after the player. After adjusting a few things, I feel like this initial prototype is in a good enough place. The most important thing is I can see how the gameplay feels tactical, but also has constant gunfights, which is what I was aiming for. The next step a lot of game developers take from here is building a vertical slice. A vertical slice is where you completely build out your game's final systems and art, but for only about 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay. This is usually in the form of a playable demo and is predominantly used to secure funding from publishers. However, I am not planning on taking funding from publishers, and even if I were, making the game in a new genre seems like a hard sell. So instead, for my game, I am going to making the next best thing, which is a marketing slice. Now you may be asking, what is a marketing slice? I've never heard of it. Well, I hope not, because it's something I made up. But hear me out, many companies use it to varying degrees without them knowing. A marketing slice is similar to a vertical slice, but the main difference is your focus is on making the gameplay look good on video, but it doesn't necessarily have to play well yet. In a marketing slice, you can have errors in your code, some janky animations, and a host of other things, but as long as you can get good high quality content, then it's good for a marketing slice. Some of you may now be saying, what is the point of a marketing slice if your game is half broken? Well, the answer is in the name. You get to start marketing your game earlier. A marketing slice for your game may only take a month to complete, while a vertical slice could take 3 to 4 months. This extra time not only allows you to get more wishlists, but also allows you to build a community that can give you valuable feedback early in your game's development. Speaking of feedback, if you would like to give some feedback for my game, I would love to hear it. Either leave a comment down below or join my Discord channel where you can leave your feedback there and also sign up to be an alpha tester. One final thing I want to talk about is how marketing slices have been abused recently. The most prominent example, as many of you know, is the game The Day Before, where the final game looked nothing like the trailer. To make sure my game doesn't end up like this, while working on my marketing slice, I will make sure that the game's systems are all interconnected and not using pre-baked animations. This way, the marketing slice and the final game should play the same once all the bugs and errors are resolved from my marketing slice. Now that I know I want to make a marketing slice, what is the next step? Well, it's basically the same as making a vertical slice, but it's susceptible to have dirty code that produces some errors and overall has a bit of jank. So I started by replacing the character models with a high quality one that I plan on using in the final game. This came with a few major and minor issues, so I quickly fixed up the major ones and left the minor ones for later. I then made the enemy AI logic so we can finally start having some firefights. I then felt like I needed to add some more flair into the gameplay, so I added an explosive grenade and the ability to throw your empty magazine at enemies to stun them. The next item on my list was adding the pick 3 option, which is found in many roguelites. While the implementation of the system seems quite simple at first glance, it has become one of the hardest parts of developing this game. This is because of my choice in making this a tactical roguelite. Many other roguelites use fantasy elements so that they can achieve diverse builds more easily. They can easily give players a shield, increase their movement speed, or use any of the 4 primary elements, and it just works because it fits the fantasy theme. However, for my game, since it's tactical, I have a large constraint, and that is that the elements need to be primarily grounded in reality. It can have a few arcadey elements, but I can't just start shooting flames out my mouth, as that is unrealistic. So I currently have the pick 3 option, which allows the players to upgrade their movement speed, explosive damage, weapon damage, etc. And while the system will work for a marketing slice, I plan on revisiting this and maybe changing it into a perk system so that it will allow for more fantasy concepts to be introduced into the game, but still be grounded in reality. If you have any thoughts on what I could do, I would love to hear it. The final step on making the marketing slice for my game is creating the environments. Since my game is a roguelite, the environments need to be procedurally generated. So I got started on making a robust toolset that allows me to make procedurally generated environments that can be connected seamlessly with a wide range of variation. And by making this tool, I definitely mean I bought a tool that does all these things, since it would easily take me 2 to 3 months to make one myself, and I'd probably end up with the inferior product. Alongside purchasing this tool, I bought some asset packs and started making some environments that could be used when my game releases. With this, I started to gather the marketing materials needed to publish a compelling Steam page which shows the vision I have for my game. The Steam page is out now, so click the link in the description and wishlist Revenge Quest. Creating a game is no easy feat, and is especially hard if you are trying to make one in a new genre like the tactical roguelike genre. However, with consistent action, I believe that it can be done. I hope this devlog has helped by not only inspiring you to make your game, but also has given you a look into the steps I have taken to start making mine. I just wanted to give a special thanks to all the content creators that I used clips from for this video. All their channels will be linked down below. And thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you want to support this game's development, the best way you can do so is by joining the Discord channel down below. I'll see you there.